I have been very critical of the Portland Trail Blazers over the last couple of years, and to be completely frank, I have been nothing but right. Although that does bring me no pleasure, and I don't mean to brag about it, because Blazers fans are actually the nicest fan base that I have ever dissed. They're actually pretty damn nice about it. But after years and years of fence sitting and making marginal move after marginal move, they have finally had a really large overhaul. So I should be satisfied now, right? Well, no, I'm not. While they did make a lot of moves, as in just numerically there were a lot of moves, it's worth dissecting whether or not these moves really move the needle or not, or if they're really just going right back to the mediocrity that we've seen over all of Damian Lillard's tenure. And helping us do that today will be my good friend Alex Hoops, who missed last week, but he's back now. So roll the intro. Before I continue on with this video, if you end up enjoying it, then please be sure to subscribe. Also drop a like on this video. It only takes 1 second. It makes a massive difference in how it performs in the YouTube algorithm. Also, if you enjoy Alex's contributions to this video, please be sure to go subscribe to his channel. Those links will be in the description, pinned comment, end card, anything you can think of. Or you can just YouTube Alex Hoops. It's not that hard.
So Portland's biggest move last season was to trade one of their primary franchise centerpieces in CJ McCollum. To me, this kind of felt inevitable. It's been coming for a long time now, and it's not for any fault of CJ, but simply because a franchise built around a backcourt of Damian Lillard and CJ McCollum probably isn't going to be a championship team without a lot of supplementary help, and due to their contract situations, that just wasn't possible. You see, Damian Lillard has an average salary of $44 million through 2025, and McCollum has an average salary of $33 million through 2024. Having $77 million tied up in just 2 players makes it really difficult to build a reliable 8 or 9 man rotation for a deep playoff run. So, as we all know, they moved CJ McCollum, Larry Nance Jr., and Tony Snell to the New Orleans Pelicans in exchange for essentially Josh Hart, as well as some additional draft compensation. So let's start off by talking about Josh Hart, because for all the criticism that Portland got for this trade, I think a lot of people don't realize how awesome of a role player Josh Hart is. He's without question one of the best role players in the entire NBA. He's a guy that's going to fit perfectly alongside Damian Lillard. Now, through 40 games with the Pelicans in 2022, Josh Hart averaged 13.4 points, 7.8 rebounds, 4.1 assists, and 1.1 steals per game, alongside 60.4% true shooting. But when he was traded to Portland, over the course of 13 games, he averaged 19.9 points, 5.4 rebounds, 4.3 assists, and 1.2 steals on an even better 62.2% true shooting. Those aren't just great role player numbers. Those numbers start teetering on fringe all-star level numbers. Now, I'm not saying that Josh Hart is going to be an all-star or anything, or that he's even going to be in conversations, or even that he's going to keep up that level of production next year when Damian Lillard's back. But these numbers are really promising for what he's going to be able to do as a complementary piece once everyone on this team is healthy again. He's a fantastic play finisher, being able to knock down catch and shoot threes while also being great at attacking closeouts and getting to the rim. He offers just a little bit of supplementary shot creation, not enough that he's a legit second option or anything, but he offers more than a serviceable amount that he can alleviate some of the offensive burden off of Damian Lillard and Anthony Simons. He also brings some much needed defense to their lineup. The Trailblazers had the worst half-court defense in the entire league last season, so it was definitely a priority for them to add some solid defense on the wing, and this is going to do a lot to improve their defense.
Defense is something the Blazers have finally looked to address this season rather than making one small move and pretending that was a band-aid to fix all. On top of Hart, they also added Gary Payton II from the Warriors. Gary Payton is the perfect player to add if you're trying to improve around the edges. Well, obviously, you're going to look at his defense first, and we're setting him up as a defensive player. It's also worth noting that he does have something to contribute on offense.
Gary Payton is a 97th percentile cutter, missing only 18 of the 98 total shots that he took off of cuts this past season. He's really good at knowing when to make a move to the basket, just making a lot of unpredictable moves and always catching the defense off guard. It's clear that he's going to be able to thrive in systems where he's alongside a player with a lot of scoring gravity, so there's no doubt in my mind that he's going to be able to experience a similar level of success in Portland as he did in Golden State, so long as Chauncey Billups puts him in a position to succeed. It's also worth pointing out that he shot 35% from 3 in 2021. While he's probably not going to be a super consistent catch and shoot threat, he should be serviceable at knocking down threes enough to be honored by the defense. And then, of course, defensively, Gary Payton is a menace. He has no issue making his matchups as uncomfortable as possible, and he's always going to go out of his way to violate their personal space at times. I think this is something that Portland was really lacking, was someone with a really high defensive motor to set the tone on defense. There are very few players in the NBA who hold a candle to Gary Payton when it comes to his defensive motor. He's engaged 100% of the time, and when you pair that motor with his great defensive instincts, the results speak for themselves.
They also traded for Jeremy Grant, which, depending on who you ask, their reaction is either this is a great move or they're rather lukewarm on it. And that's pretty much because there are two versions of Jeremy Grant and you don't know which one you're getting.
So there's a Detroit Pistons Jeremy Grant, and then there's a Denver Nuggets Jeremy Grant. These two players are vastly different. Detroit Pistons Jeremy Grant was a primary scorer, doing a lot of the shot creation, and he was a pretty major focal point of the offense, despite not being particularly great at it. But Denver Nuggets Jeremy Grant is an entirely different story. Nuggets Jeremy Grant was an awesome 3-and-D wing, being a 39% three-point shooter during his one season in Denver. He was operating as the perfect modern wing, being able to guard the perimeter and also provide some deterrence on the interior due to his size. His athleticism even allowed him to operate as a bit of a lob threat. Overall, the Denver version of Jeremy Grant is perfect alongside Damian Lillard, but Detroit Jeremy Grant probably isn't nearly as good of a fit. If he's able to find a good balance between operating off the ball and blending in some supplementary shot creation, then there's definitely some reason for optimism. He was taking 15 shots per game in Detroit last year. He's definitely not going to get that many shots in Portland, or at least he shouldn't. So he's going to have to remember how to operate as a supporting player alongside some more ball-dominant players.
Where the problem here lies is that the additions of Grant, Gary Payton, and Josh Hart are all moves that you make to bridge the gap between a pretty good playoff team to a contender. While these moves are good for that kind... While these moves are more than good for a team trying to make that type of leap, the Blazers are trying to go from a lottery team to a contender. They needed more than this. As a result, their success going forward is really going to be dependent on two major gambles. One of them is shady on Sharp, and this is one of those instances where I'm glad that I have Alex on the mic because I don't know anything about draft prospects, so let's see what he has to say.
Assessing Sharp is really difficult because we don't have a lot of film to go off of. He was the #1 ranked prospect in 2022, according to ESPN, Rivals, and 24/7 Sports before he enrolled at UK a semester early, but he would just never end up playing. He has absolutely insane athleticism at the guard spot. I really like the idea of his pairing alongside Damian Lillard because they have a really good contrast in how they operate. Damian Lillard at this point in his career does most of his work off of breaking down his defenders and generating space on his shots. Sharp is more of an athletic type of guard, but he's shown that he's also good at generating space off the dribble and knocking down pull-up jumpers. I'm nervous to make really any claims about Sharp and what he's going to be capable of because we don't really have a lot of evidence to go off. We just don't know what he's going to look like at the NBA level because the last reasonable competition that he played was at the 2021 EYBL tournament. So it's pretty safe to say that this pick is a gamble on upside by Portland. There are a lot of scouts that were confident Sharp was a clear top 5 pick in this draft, and others were more skeptical. It's just going to be a situation where we're going to have to wait and see, and if it pays off, it's going to pay big, but if it doesn't, it's definitely going to hurt.
The second gamble comes down to one of the biggest surprises and silver linings of last season, and that was Anthony Simons. Given Damian Lillard's injury last year, Simons was finally able to step into a starting role, and the results were phenomenal, so much so that he ended up getting a $100 million contract from the Blazers as a result.
Simons put up 17.3 points per game on 40.5% shooting from 3 on 7.8 attempts per game. He proved that he has the ability to create his own shot against legit NBA defenses and knock down shots at a high level. He's got a really nasty step back, and he's going to do a great job of taking some of the pressure off of Damian Lillard to brunt the scoring load. Additionally, he proved that he can be a reliable off-ball player, and I'm pretty confident that he scratches a similar itch that CJ McCollum did. Really, the concerns are going to lie in their backcourt defense. The Blazers made some meaningful strides in fleshing out their defense, but at the end of the day, they're likely going to be starting Dame and Simons together. That's not really a great recipe defensively, even though the offensive firepower between the two is definitely exciting. Even if Simons improves defensively, he's always going to be limited just due to his lack of size. Another thing that hinges on Portland being able to compete in the postseason is going to be the improvement of a lot of their younger bench guys. Trendon Watford, who actually just won Summer League Finals MVP, Keon Johnson, and Greg Brown are all guys that are going to need to step up into bigger roles and show that they can impact winning at a high level. They've all shown flashes in their own rights, but right now they're all young players on team-friendly contracts. Their improvements are going to be super important if Portland wants to have any chance of contending in the near future. Right now, as currently constructed, they look like a potential play-in team with a pretty outside shot of being a solid playoff team. There's a lot of promising parts to this Portland team, and I like the direction they're heading in, but if the goal is to win a championship around Damian Lillard, they've got a ways to go.
All things considered, the Blazers have easily had their best offseason and been more correct and more what I want them to be than ever before. But it's still not enough, and that is the problem. They still have all but one of their future first-round picks, and they traded for some good players, which is cool, and it's going to make them better than they would have been, but they are still ultimately not going all in one way or the other. They are still fence-sitting. As I have said before, they either need to go all in on rebuilding around Dame and putting a star-level talent around him, or they need to blow it up. And once more, they have 1 foot in the door and 1 foot out the door at the same damn time. And that's what they've done for his entire prime. Damian Lillard is only getting older, and so long as that's the case, half-assing a rebuild or reconstruction as they have, it's not going to get the job done. And as a result, it's just wasting everybody's time. Having promising young talent as the Blazers now appear to have is actually pretty cool, but they don't really have time to wait on that to develop around Damian Lillard, so they need to embrace one side of the coin or the other and not just continue to kick the can down the road. As much as Blazers fans do have some reason to be optimistic going into this year just simply because they are better than they were before and this is the most different the team has ever been, ultimately, I think that optimism is going to be gone by the end of the year as they realize once again they are watching a fairly mediocre NBA roster at play. But yeah, that was it. Shout out to Alex, and goodbye.